All right, welcome everybody. This is session 3 of the On Air Kansas Google Summit. If you're watching this and you do not have access to the chat on the right that says it's restricted, go ahead and refresh your window. We got that fixed right before we went live, so you should be seeing a chat window if you refresh your page, if you don't see that right now. But so this session is I'm going to go over Google Forms and just getting started with forms, how to set it up, and all the settings you need to know about. But before we get started, I want to remind you to fill out the attendance form that is on the session 3 page. When you submit that form, you will get a link to the session resources for this session. And then also don't forget to fill out the feedback form that is also on the session 3 page. And then there you will have the opportunity to have a certificate of attendance or participation sent to you in case your district requires that for you to get your professional development points recorded. So anyway, all right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Travis True. I'm a curriculum technology specialist for Topeka Public Schools in Topeka, Kansas. And there on my screen, you can see all the different ways you can contact me. I've been the person that has been emailing you updates and information for the last week or so. And this session is getting started with Google Forms. It's going to be a basic session. I'm going to go through how to set up a form, the things you can do, and the different settings that you can set to kind of explain why you would turn some on and not turn others on. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to create a new tab, and to create a new form, usually what we do is you can go to Google Drive and you can click on the new button and then come down here underneath to more. And then click on Google Forms to create a new one. But I'm going to give you a little shortcut, and this can be done with any of your tools. This can be done with Docs, Sheets, Slides, and Forms. All you got to do is type in the name of the tool that you want to create. So in this case, it's Forms, and then type in .new. So it could be docs.new, sheets.new, slides.new. In this case, it's going to be forms.new. I'm going to hit enter, and it creates a brand new Google form. So here is a brand new Google form that is already created, or that I've created. What you want to do is you want to come up to the top left and you want to title this form. So this is going to be my Summit demo. And then if I click on the down here under the untitled form, it will also take on the same title. Now this title here is, this is what is actually seen by the person who's filling out the form. So it can be actually edited if you wanted to. So we're going to add a little couple of other items there. And so now this is the Kansas G Summit demo form. Underneath the form, you can add description, so you can let people know what kind of data you're collecting or why you are using this form. And then down below, you can start creating your questions. So they give you a question to start with. So you click on Untitled Question, and then you type in or copy and paste the question that you want to ask. So in this case, I'm going to just type in, what is your name? Question mark. And then over here, so it has some artificial intelligence built in, so it will try to guess based on your question what kind of question you're asking. So in this case, I asked, what is your name? And it's taking its best guess to say, I need a short answer type of question response for that. You can change this. You just click the drop down menu, and these are all the different question types that you have. So I'm going to go through these kind of quickly and just kind of tell you the difference between the two. But you have short answer and paragraph. Basically, the difference between these two, is that you can put, when you put longer answers in a paragraph, it will wrap the text, and the short answer will not wrap the text. And then also, those are the only two options that you have for answering open-ended questions or having people type in questions. So in this case, we're going to do a short answer question. Every question at the bottom has a button that looks like this. This is the duplicate button. What that means is if I click on it, it duplicates and gives me another question right below it, where then I can either change the question or change the question type. Also, underneath every question, there's a delete button, so you can delete that question. There's also a required button. You can click on that and make that question required, and when you do, there's a little red dot that will show up next to the question so that people know that they have to answer that question, and that question cannot be skipped, and the form cannot be submitted unless that question is actually answered. And then the three dots, anytime you see three dots like this on a Google tool, that means there's more tools underneath there. So if you click on that, you can show a description. So in this case, for the short answer or paragraph, if you click on description, there's a little text box that pops up here, and you could type in some help type of guidance for your users. So in this case, what is your name? We want them to include your first and last name. Because like if we do this for like attendance forms, like we're doing for this event, some people will just put first name or last name, or maybe even nickname. So that kind of helps. The description kind of helps guide people into putting in the correct information. Also, under the More button, there are advanced settings that are specific to each question type. So in the short answer and response validation, you can actually create rules for the answers. So if you've ever seen or if you've ever done an online digital breakout with a Google form, and you have to type in a certain word or a certain combination of letters and numbers, response validation is how that's happening. And we have a session this week that will walk you through how to do this and create digital breakouts. But if you were going to, you could have the answer it could be a number greater than, maybe it equals to 5, and so whatever the response is put into this box by the student. Let's say it's a practice math, kind of like the minute time tests for multiplication facts. You can set it up with all of the different questions and then have the response validation so that the correct answer has to go into the box or it flags it, so they get immediate feedback whether or not that answer is right or wrong. And so that's what the response validation kind of does. You can do things like numbers, you can have text, so you can have words, or you can, if you're wanting people to put in their email address, that has to be in the form of an email address or even a website. a length, regular expression. This will be where you can set up like passwords and things like that for your digital breakouts. So, so that's what you would use there. So that's on the short answer and the paragraph text. To create a new question, you'd click on the plus button on the toolbar here on the right, and it just puts the next question underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the multiple choice checkbox and drop down. So again, I'm going to show you an example of the artificial intelligence at work. So if you're creating an order form for t-shirts and you put in there, choose your size of t-shirt, it actually suggests it making a multiple choice, and it has the different sizes. Now you can pick and say, okay, we don't not offer an extra small shirt, so we're going to say small, medium. You know what? We're going to do all of these, so we're just going to add all of these to the list. And you can add options, so you can add like maybe youth large if you're doing new size, and these can be moved around. So you can just, the 6 dots here on the side, you just click and drag, and you can drop those in whatever order you want. And then that makes it a multiple choice question. On a multiple choice, on any online form that you fill out, anytime you see a circle as the choice, that means that you can choose one of those. And that's really for any online form system. It's kind of a universal setting. So that's multiple choice. Checkboxes is a type of multiple choice, except you can choose multiple responses or multiple answers. So anytime you see a square in there as part of the responses, the person filling out the form can pick more than one. Now, in the on the 3 and under more settings, you still have description. So in this case, when I'm using checkboxes, I utilize the description so people know that they can choose all that apply, because they may not know that they can pick more than one. Or you could limit them to how many they can pick, and that's one of the response validation settings, is they can select at least 3. And so then you could put that in your description, choose up to 3. And then after they have the 3rd one picked, they can't pick anymore. They would have to stop that. And you can only have one response validation rule at a time. So I couldn't have another one. And then the other option is here, you can shuffle the order of your options or answers so that the order will show up differently for different people. Like, so if you're given a quiz or something, you can do that. So that is the multiple choice, the checkbox. The drop down is basically the same thing. You can choose one of these, but it creates a drop-down menu, a lot like this menu here, where you would click and then you could choose your choices here. We utilize drop-down on a lot of our forms. We have a question that for sign-up forms where we ask people what building they work in, and we have over 25 buildings in our district, and so we put it in a drop down. That way it doesn't take up so much room on the form, and then they're only allowed to choose one of those options. So all of these 3 multiple choice checkboxes and drop downs are very similar. But remember, multiple choice, the person filling out the form can choose one of those options. Checkboxes, the person filling out the form can choose multiple, and then drop down again is also just one option that they can pick. Right, I'm going to create a new question, and this is our file upload option. So I'm going to choose file upload here. And so you can actually have people upload different files to your form. It could be a picture, they could be a PDF document, it could be a video, could be an audio file. You have lots of different options of types of files that you can have people upload. It's great to get documents back from parents. It's great to get pictures from parents for different things like class slideshows or like end of the year slideshows that we would maybe have had a couple weeks ago. And that's an option you can put in here to a Google form. So when you do that, you would click continue. Now what happens is the file gets uploaded to your Google Drive, and it also gets put into a folder. So it's organized fairly nicely into a folder. But I'm going to go ahead and click continue, and we'll set up this question. So my question would be, upload your field trip permission form, okay? And so you can allow specific files to be uploaded. So if I turn this on, you would pick or you would check which types of files can be uploaded. So if I choose like PDF and images, those are the only types of files that are going to be able to be uploaded. If somebody tries to upload a Word document or even an audio file, it's not going to allow it. So you can choose which ones to allow. If you don't care, you just uncheck that, and any type of file can be uploaded. The maximum number of files this is to be uploaded at one time. So in this case, the default setting is one file at a time per submission of the form. You can have it where they can upload 5 files at a time or 10 files at a time, and they would just add to the upload list and then upload them all at the same time. And then the maximum file size, I usually go ahead and change this to 10 gigabytes just to be safe. And then you'll get this error message, and you have to come in and click change and come down here and change it. You could actually change it to a terabyte if you wanted to, but you have to change it to kind of match that. So, but now when somebody looks at the form, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to preview the form. So I'm going to click on the eyeball at the top right. Excuse me. Here's my upload permission slip form. Click add file. And I'm just going to select a picture that I have here on my desktop. And if I was able to add more files, I could add them, but I can't. It won't let me. It'll give me an error. So I'm going to go ahead and click upload. And so that is uploading that file. And we will look at that and where that actually lives here in a second. So here's the option 2 for the drop-down menu. And then you see the name with the description underneath here. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this so we have that information later. Again, you can duplicate, delete, make this required. There's no advanced settings for a file upload, except you do have a description that you can put in underneath there. And I'm going to add another question. So our next question type is the linear scale. So you could set up a Likert scale or a linear scale. So this would be a question like, on a scale from 1 to 5, how's this presentation? You see that on the feedback form for all of these sessions. So you would choose linear scale. You can start at 0 or 1. You can end at 2 all the way through 10. 1 to 5 is the default. And you can also label these, so people will know that 1 would equal horrible and 5 would equal great. The next type of question is the multiple choice grid and the checkbox grid. These questions are the same, except just like the multiple choice questions, anything with a circle can be chosen once, and then the grid has the checkbox, or the checkbox grid has multiples.
Hey, Travis.
So you set up these questions like, yeah.
So Rhonda had a question.
Yes.
When you were changing the file submission to 10 gig, is that for that one or the total of all uploads?
So this maximum file size here is 10 gigabytes per upload. So if I had this set to 5, it would be, for all 5 files uploaded, it would be maximum, you can only have a maximum of 10 gigabytes uploaded. So that would be 50 gigabytes, and so you would need to come over and then change this to either 100 gigabytes or a terabyte. That way the form could actually collect that, because if you have it less than, if you have this set up to where the form can accept less than what you're actually allowing to upload, you're going to run into problems and it's actually not going to work. Okay. Okay. Back to the multiple choice grid question. So I'm going to set this up like this. How often do you do these things? So in the row section, these are things that are going to be listed on the left side of your question. So it's going to be things like walk the dog, take a shower, stuff like that. And then the columns are going to be listed across the top. So you could have things like daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever. And these can be moved up and down. When I preview the form, here's what it looks like. And you're allowed to pick one in each. I can't pick, notice how the dot moves. So I can't pick 2 in each column or each row. I can have 1 in each row, but I can have multiples in the same column, but I have to have 1 picked in each row. Now, with the
Hey, Travis.
Yeah.
One more question I can't answer is Sarah House had a great question about if they fix the picture issue so you can insert it in the questions and not just the answer.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So on the multiple choice grid question, you can actually require a response for each row. So when you do a required, if you're making this a required option, they have to pick 1 response in each row in order to go on. And also, you can limit 1 response per column if you wanted to. So if you limit 1 response per column, what that means is they can only pick 1 response per column. So before we had all 3 of these checked, and now we're actually limiting to, you can only have one column there check or selected instead of multiples in that same column. And then the other one is you can shuffle the row if you wanted to. Now on the checkbox grid, it's basically the same as before, except it's got the square so that you can choose multiples. So when I preview this and I'm able to look at it, I could actually put a check mark in each one, and we still have that restrictions turned on. So the restriction is to don't select more than one response per column. So that response is still selected, or it's still turned on our form, even though we changed the question type. That setting is still set. So if I check that or uncheck it and shut it off, I can put a check mark in each one of those each one of those boxes. And then the final two question types are date and time. You can ask people to enter a date. And then the advanced settings here is you could include a time if you want. The year is automatically included. If you don't want the year included, you can uncheck that, and then they would just choose the month and day. And they can click on the calendar, and it pops up a little calendar, and they can click on the calendar. And then the time, they can enter the time, or they can enter duration. So if you're having them log something, maybe a reading log or a log for a science lab of any kind or an exercise log, you could actually have them log the duration instead of the actual time in AM and PM. So if I select duration here and preview this, that question looks like, make sure I got it right, duration. There you go. And then I preview it, hours, they can put in hours, minutes, and seconds. So how long did you read? I read for 3 hours and 25 minutes and 0 seconds. So reading logs, science labs, exercise logs, things like that, you could do the duration instead of a time. And the time is actually hours, minutes, AM, and PM, that way. So those are the different question types that you can submit. And like I said, for each question, there is the duplicate button, the delete button, the required button, and then the more tools. Also, when you have questions, you can move them. You can drag and drop these in different order. There's at the top of each question box, there's 6 dots at the top. And you just click and hold and drag and drop your questions in whatever order you want them to be in, because that's the order that people will see them unless you have it set to where the questions are shuffled. On the toolbox, or on the toolbar over here on the right, I already showed you the new question button. One of the newer options I have is you can actually import questions from other forms. This is an awesome tool, and it's saved me a ton of work because I can bring in other questions instead of retyping the same question. So like that question we have about our building that has over 25 different buildings listed. In the past, I would have to copy and paste or retype all of those buildings every time I wanted to use it. Now with this setting, I can go to a form that already has that question and pull that question in. And so you could actually create a form that's just like a question bank, where then you can go and pull questions from. So if I click on this, a window pops up and it lets you pick which form you want to use. In this case, I've already used forms, so I'm going to click on my previously selected forms that I've used. I don't have any in this account. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just use this form as an example. So this is one of the feedback forms. And what it does is it'll put the question, these are the questions from that form. So the feedback form for question 6 has these questions. Please rate this boot camp. It's a linear scale question, 2 paragraph questions, and then a multiple choice. So, excuse me. I want to pull in this linear question, so I'm going to choose this. I can choose multiple questions, or I can just select all the questions. Say I want to bring all these questions over. I'm just going to select a couple and import them in, and it will import them in underneath where the question that I was on. So I was on this question. It's kind of highlighted blue here on the left. And when I clicked on import question here, when I brought those in, it dropped them down here. Now I can edit these questions. So like this one's required, and then this one's required too. We don't need to make them required. So it just brought those questions over, and I don't have to retype them or do anything else. It's pretty awesome. Next on that toolbar is the title and description. You can actually add, if I click on this, it'll add a section in between. And it's kind of like a section break. That's what it used to be called before they did some updates to forms. So you can break up your form into different sections. Maybe you have if it's a quiz, maybe you have multiple choice in the first part and then short answer on the bottom. You can break them up differently like that. And if I preview this, this is what it looks like. And there's that section break, and then there's a description. So you can put some information underneath that description for that section break if you want to also. You can insert you can insert images. And when you do that, you can upload something from your computer or flash drive. You can use your webcam. You can use the URL of the picture that you find online. You can use photos that you have saved into your drive if you've got other pictures saved into your drive, or you can use Google image search and find pictures of, let's say, summer. And these are all images that come back as you have permission to reuse them. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose this second one and click insert. Now, this image is not associated with any question. It's just kind of in the form. And you can put a title of the form, or sorry, of the picture here. On the picture itself, you have the 3 dots, which means there's more tools underneath there. You can do some different aligning. So we're going to center this onto the form. You can also change the picture and remove the picture. This picture is awful big. So if you click on the picture, you get a blue outline with some squares. And if you click and drag, you can actually make that picture smaller so it doesn't take up as much room on the form. And then you'll have a much smaller picture. Again, you can duplicate, trash, or you can also show hover text. So if you hover this, if I preview this, that hover text is when I hover my mouse over the picture, it's supposed to pop up, and I don't see it popping up. Make sure that we'll look at it. We'll look at it here in a little bit. The other thing, so that's an image. So the question earlier was about images and picture, or images and questions. So I'm going to come back up here to my multiple choice question. And I'm going to change the question. I'm also going to get rid of the description, and I'm going to close or delete the responses. You just do that by clicking the X out here to the right. So what you can do is you can actually add a picture as part of your question and as part of your answer. When you do this, when you hover your mouse over your question, you'll get a picture icon that pops up here on the right side. And when you click on that, then you can upload a picture. So again, this should look familiar because we just saw it on the other upload image file. So I'm going to do an image search for and we're just going to put this one in here. So that's actually this picture is going to be part of this question. And if you put pictures in the other way I showed you, the problem you're going to run into is if you have shuffle questions on, then the questions aren't going to line up with your pictures. But if you put pictures in this way, those pictures are tied into that question. So I have this I have my question here, and then I'm going to add my pictures in. So again, I'm going to add pictures to my answer. So I'm going to go into image search and just pick a couple of presidents here. Now, the other thing you need to kind of understand how forms work is that the picture is not going to be part of the response spreadsheet. It's actually going to be whatever you have typed in as the response. And I'll show you that here in a second once I get this picture added in. So I've got I'm going to just do two options here. So I have option 1 and option 2. Notice you can't resize the picture and you can't center it. You can only remove it with the X. And when somebody answers this question, in the response spreadsheet, it's going to show up as option 1 and not George Washington. So what you can do is you can choose to because that's going to help you know which option that they picked when you look at the data in the spreadsheet. But I'm going to leave option 2 there just because I'll show you what that looks like. And then so that's inserting images into your questions. So anytime you see that little image icon, you can add a question in there, either into the question itself or into the responses. Not every question you're able to do that, but most of them you can at least put the question into, or sorry, put the picture into the question. And then the last thing I want to show you, or second to last thing, is the YouTube video. You can add YouTube videos to your responses or to your forms. We are starting to utilize this for online PD. We create the video, upload it to YouTube, and then we will put the video in just like this with a couple of questions underneath it so that when they watch it, they have to answer the questions, and that helps us to keep track of how many people are watching it, so we can issue them PD points, and based on their questions, we know whether or not they watched the video. Again, you can put a title on here. We have the 3 dots on the video itself. I'm going to center it. If you want to make it bigger, you can click and drag and make it bigger on the screen. Now the thing is the student watches the video right from the form. They're not taken to YouTube at all. They watch it right in the form. And you're not going to get the suggested videos or the ads or anything else to do that. So let me go back and show you again how to put that video in. So the video button, the insert video button is here on the toolbar on the right. It's got the little play button on it. And then you can either search, or if you have the video, you can just paste the web address. But it has to be a YouTube video. No other videos will work other than YouTube videos. So I'm just going to search for everybody's favorite principle and just put that video in there. I'm going to go ahead and center it, make it a little bit bigger so it's a little bit easier to see on the page. And then that'll be it. Now this isn't tied to any questions. Any questions that you have, you'll need to put below those questions. And then the last part that I want to show you, I'm going to go all the way down here at the bottom. The last part on this toolbar is the add section. So what this does is it allows you to have multiple pages of a form. So you could organize your form into different pages. And really, it actually also lets you do some what's called branching, which is if I were to answer a question a certain way, I could be taken to a different page. And that's a whole other session later on. But branching allows you to send people to parts of the form that you want them to go to or that they need to go to. So when I talk about branching, so I have this section. So this is section number 2. And so if I come back up here to my multiple choice question, the option or the advanced setting in my option here is to go to the section based on the answer. That's the branching setting. So when I do this and turn this on, if somebody answers George Washington, they can submit the form. They're done, they got it right, they can submit the form. If somebody answers Abe Lincoln, they will be taken to section 2, and down in section 2, we have a little note that says, and so here's what it looks like when I preview the form. I use branching a lot with different district forms. We have a form that teachers fill out when they get a laptop or other technology checked out to them. It has all the data on it, but they're only needing to submit data for maybe a laptop or a Chromebook. Then they're only taken to that part of the form and that is submitted, and they don't have to go through the other 10 or 15 pages of the form. So here's our question. If I answer option 2 here, we know that that's not right. And I go down here to the next button. It takes me to section 2. And remember who the first president was, so that I could go back and change that answer if I wanted to. So branching is really cool, and like I said, that's a whole other session that we could get into for branching. Okay, so that's basically the different types of questions and the toolbar on the side. Now what I want to show you is here at the top, you've got the question tab and you got the responses tab. So the responses tab is where your data lives. And then you have 3 ways to look at you actually have 4 ways to look at your data. You have the summary of the data. So this is the summary. This will be by question. So nobody's answered anything. The only thing that's been answered is the upload your permission slip. So let me come back, and I'm just going to put in some questions. I'm just going to answer some questions here real quick. just so we have some data. I've already done that. Not going 2 hours, 30 minutes, 0. And then I should be go to submit. All right, so I submitted some data, and it'll show up here as soon as it gets done. There, I have 2 responses here. So I'm going to refresh this page. Okay, so here's my summary. If it can, it's going to create it's going to create a pie chart or a bar graph of the data, if it can. Let me refresh my page. And if it can't, if it's like text, it's just going to list out all of the text for that question. Sorry, guys, my machine is running kind of slow. We've had kind of a power blip this morning. It hasn't been working quite right since then. I'm going to try to get into it right here real quick. If you're the owner of a form and you're actually looking at the form, so this would be the form that I send out to people, there's a little pencil button down here that gives me where I can go into the edit view of that. So that is if you're the editor or sorry, the owner or the collaborator of the form, you will have that little pencil button down there at the bottom. All right, so it looks like it's loading now. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my responses. So I have 2 responses, and here's my data. So it's going to try to put it into either a bar graph or a pie chart, depending on what type of question it is. And down here, I can see my picture, and I can also view the folder where that lives. So remember, anytime you have the file upload option, it's going to create a folder in your drive, and those documents are going to be saved into that folder. And what you also notice is it put my name at the end. So it's important to also understand that for file upload questions that the end user who's ever filling that out and uploading those has to have a Google account, and they have to be signed in because it's going to take their name from that Google account and put it on that file so you know who uploaded that. And then there's the rest of the data. Now, we can look at it question by question. So here's question 1, question 2, and so on. And we can also look at individual submissions. So this would be the first submission. And these can be printed off too. So when this is filled out, when the form's filled out, that can be printed off. And then submission 2 is actually where I filled out that information. So you have the name, I picked this one, you see all those check boxes and so on. So that could actually be printed out. Now on this page, you can shut off the form right here, accepting responses. Now when this form is shared out, it is no longer accepting responses, and this message can be customized. So you could put something like, or whatever you want your message to say. You can also put in links to a website. And so what that looks like is it'll look like this when it loads. It's closed, and then you can customize this message, and that whatever link you put in there is going to work. When you click on it, it'll take you to that page. And then the other thing you can do here is you can get a notification anytime somebody responds to the form. So anytime there's a new response, you'll get an email notification. You can also download everything as a CSV file. You can print all the responses at one time. You can also delete the responses. In order to see all of the data, you could generate the spreadsheet by clicking the green icon here. And then you have two options here. You can create a brand new spreadsheet, or if you want the form to go to one spreadsheet or a different spreadsheet, you can send it to a different spreadsheet. And you can actually have multiple forms go to one spreadsheet. What happens is it makes a new tab on that spreadsheet for every form you had tied to that spreadsheet. So like all these attendance forms for all these sessions, there are 18 different attendance forms. Those are all going, they can go to one spreadsheet, and that way I don't have 18 spreadsheets to deal with. So I'm going to have this generate a new spreadsheet. And we'll look at the data real quick. And so this is the raw data. So you have in row 1, you have the question in row 1, and everything is timestamped, so you'll know when something was submitted. That's when the submission button was clicked, and data can only be captured when the submission button is clicked. So you can, here's all the data, and here are the different columns for that grid question. This is the linear question. Please rate the boot camp. And then so there was, I picked 3 on that one. Here's the file upload. So here's the link to that file. So you have it in your regular response screen, and you also have it linked here in your response spreadsheet. So you can see that picture or that file. So you're not going to lose that file. And then there's what the time looks like also. So that's your raw data on your form. Now, some of the other settings here real quick because we're running out of time. The paint palette here is you can customize the theme of your form. It's going to give you this purple kind of violet theme. You can change the color here. You can also change the image. They give you some banner or header images that you can choose from, and you can change these on the fly if you want. Also, if you have your own, you can upload your own. Here is the trick to uploading your own. If you go to Google Drawings and you change the canvas to 800 by 200 pixels, that is a pretty standard size for a Google a Google Form banner and also a Google Classroom banner. So I'll show you how to do that here real quick. So you go into Drive, you go down to More, go into Google Drawings, and we're going to have a Google Drawings session, I think, tomorrow. So if you're interested more in Google Drawings, where you can create images and different flyers and things like that, make sure you log in. But when you have your Google Drawing up here, you'll go into File and Page Setup. And you'll change it to 800 by 200, maybe. And then you can upload that. I'm going to come back. I'll let that load. I'm going to come back. But you can change the theme colors. You can upload your own picture. And notice how I'm going to choose this picture, or I did choose a picture with the, I think it was the jelly beans. Yeah, so I'm gonna pick this picture with the jelly beans, and it's going to try to grab a color that matches up with that picture. I can change the theme color here. I can also add in my own custom color. I can change the background color if you don't like the yellow, or you can make it darker yellow. And then you have some font styles. And this is all the different font styles you have. You don't have anything else, but here's what you need to make sure you understand is that the font styles only affect the questions and not the responses. So notice in this multiple choice, the font is in that playful font, but the answer here is not. So just keep that in mind that you can't do that. I showed you the preview button already. That lets you preview the form so that that's what it's going to look like when it's live. And then in the settings, here's what you need to know about your settings for this particular form. If you automatically collect email addresses, people are going to be forced to sign into their Google account. So if you have students using Chromebooks, that's okay because they're already signed into their Google account. And then on the response spreadsheet, there's going to be a column next to the timestamp that will list their email address. You can also have a response receipt emailed to them. They can either request it to be emailed, or what I do a lot is just automatically email that. And basically it's an email with the form that they filled out that they get back. So it's like a summary of what they filled out. We do that a lot for professional development when they sign up for sessions. So that, because we're always answering questions, oh, I forgot what session I signed up for. So if you always send that receipt, then they'll have a copy of what they actually filled out. Required sign-in, if you're sending this outside of your school district, make sure that you uncheck the restrict to users, and then it'll be at your domain. If you're sending this to parents to fill out, they don't have an email address with your domain, so it'll say that they won't be able to access it. So if you're sending the form out outside of your district, uncheck this box to restrict it. And if you only want to limit one response per form, then they still must have a Google account in order to do that. So when you're sending forms to parents, don't collect the email address, don't limit to one response, because not everybody has a Google account, and that just frustrates parents even more. You can ask for the email address as part of a question. That's what we do on our summer enrichment camps. We ask them what their email address is. And then respondents can, if you want, you can have them edit their response after they submit their form if you want. That's going to be turned off. And then if you want them to be able to see summary of the form, that would be any charts or text response. That's basically everything on that summary or that response tab. You can have them see that information so they can see it as a whole on how many people answered what, but those are usually shut off. And then if you do have the file upload option here, you can do that. All right, the last couple things I want to share with you is under the send button. So to send an email, if you're going to send this message, you can actually email it to somebody, and then it will send them the direct link, and they can actually fill the form out in their email. What I usually do is click on this link and then because this is the actual link to the form that you want them to fill out, and click on this box, and that shortens that form so it's not really long in the email. And then I copy that and send it to the people that need to fill out the form. If you've got a blog or a website, you can embed that. If you're on a Google site, you can also insert it onto a Google site. However, Google does not let you embed forms on a site that has the file upload option. So if you have a file upload option, you're not able to embed it on the site, but you can link it to the site if you want. And then under the three dots here, you can make a copy of the form. You can move the form to the trash. You could print the form, and when you print the form, it actually looks just like the form. And there's a spot where people can write in their answer or check a box or fill in the circle. And then you can also add collaborators. So if I add collaborators, these are people who can edit the form as well as me. So I can have a group of people be able to edit the same form and add questions, look at the data, and do that. And so it's kind of shared this way like a Google Doc in that sense. All right, let me come back real quick. All right, so to the banner section. So in Google Drawings, you go to File, Page Setup, and under the drop-down, you click on Custom, and you're going to change this to pixels, and you're going to do 800 by 200, and click Apply, and then there's your banner. You can right-click, and you can change the background, however you want that to look. You can add in a picture. We're going to add in a text box. And we're going to change real quick. We're going to change the text color to white so we can see it. We'll center it, make it look better, make it look a little bit bigger, and do all those fancy things. You could add pictures on here. You could add your Bitmoji on here, all different types, whatever you wanted to put on here. Well, the way you get into your form is you would file, download, and download it as a PNG. Gail talked about PNGs in our earlier sessions. These are smaller files that are good for the web. And so it's down here in Chrome. I'm going to go back to my form. I'm going to click on the customize theme, the paint palette, and I'm going to change my image. And I'm going to upload this. I'm going to choose upload. And then I'm just going to click where it's saved down here. I'm just going to click and drop and drag it in to upload it instead of clicking the upload button. And there it is. If I need to, I can adjust the size if I need to, but 800 by 200 fits that well. And then I click done, and it puts it in, and then you should see my background will change to probably blue or bluish or purple. And again, I can change that. There's my theme color. I can change my background. If I look at this, you'll be able to see the banner. You can't see the banner unless you submit it. Oops, I got to turn it on. Oh, actually, you can see it there. So there's my banner there at the top. So anyway, okay. Well, that is pretty much it. I know I rushed through quite a bit of that, but that's kind of the basics on forms. There's a lot of other things you can do with forms that like the branching and some of the other stuff too, but that should get you started. Dina, do we have any other questions or anything?
No, you've got them all answered. Great job,
Okay.
Travis.
The only other thing that I didn't show you because I ran out of time that you may be interested in is in the settings. So I showed you the general settings. Under presentation, this is where you can show a progress bar. You can show you can shuffle the questions, and then you can also customize your confirmation. So this is the message that when somebody submits, this is the message that they see. So like the attendance form that you filled out, I customized it and put the link to the session resources, and this is where I put that in there. And then the last part, which I didn't get to at all, is setting up quizzes, and that's a whole other session in itself. So if you're interested, you can play around with that a little bit. But I suggest going out to YouTube and searching for some YouTube videos on setting up Google quizzes if you're interested in that, and maybe that'll be a session for the next time we do a online summit. So, all right. If there are no other questions, that's all I have for today. Remember, there are 3 other sessions this afternoon, starting at 1 o'clock. There is a session on Google Meet, a session on getting organized with Google, and then a session on exploring the ISTE standards and tying them to Google tools. So that's all I've got for today. Thank you for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and summer.